for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Playing on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Playing on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. With Tony Marinaro.
55 seconds left in the penalty, a minute and 27 seconds left in regulation time. Boston 4, Montreal 3. Lafleur coming out rather gingerly on the right side. He gives it into Lemaire, back to Lafleur. Oh!
The sickest Montreal Canadiens podcast.
You're in the spot!
Sports entertainment like no other.
Rejoint, on lui fait perdre la rondelle, une passe devant. Et c'est le dégagement et ce sera la victoire des Canadiens. Coupe Stanley pour les Canadiens. Le 23e de l'histoire.
You found the dogs! John, you found the dogs! He found the dogs! And all together, they worked a young team to the top. And now, a 24th Stanley Cup banner will hang from the rafters of the famous Forum in Montreal. The Canadiens win the Stanley Cup.
Brought to you by Energy Transportation Group. Driven to be different. La Vida TV. Embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination. It's gonna be sick.
Marinaro, the Sick Podcast on this Friday, March 7th. Usually I'm not in on Fridays. I am in every now and then if I'm taking over for Matt O'Hayan or if it's a really important night, a really special night in the National Hockey League. And of course, March 7th, 2025 was a date that was circled on many people's calendars because it was NHL trade deadline day. The NHL trade deadline has come and gone. And if you bet that your Montreal Canadiens would stand pat, well, you would be right because they did not make a move today. Go all the way with Betway and get a free bet up to $200. If your first bet loses, scan the QR code on the screen or click on the link in the details section to create an account. Redeem your welcome offer. Offers only available for new customers. Terms and conditions apply. Offers not available in Ontario. Must be 18 years of age and older. And please play responsibly. The Sick Podcast is also brought to you in part by Bittt Tibi. They launched their new Ultra Lager, refreshing, thirst-quenching beer. Perfect for chilly winter days. Only 90 calories, 2 grams of carbs, 4% ABV per can. Available in a pack of 6 and 12 in grocery stores all around the province of Quebec. It's ultra light, ultra refreshing. The day got off to a pretty good start for the Montreal Canadiens because Caden Gooley was on the ice skating in Brassard for the Montreal Canadiens. And who would have thought that? Mind you, Kent Hughes says it's not because you saw him skating that it necessarily means that he's going to be back and will take part in the final 20 games of the season, or even 10 of those games, or even 5 of those games. We'll get to that a little bit later on. Well, if you were worried that Kent Hughes was going to sell, you don't have to worry about that because he did not. But if you were hoping that he was going to be a buyer today, that didn't happen either. Joining us right now to talk about it from Global TV Montreal, Brian Wilde, and from Hockey Inside Out and the Montreal Gazette newspaper, Stu Cowan. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you doing, Tony?
Very
well. Very well.
We have a bunch of people watching us, and what I think will be a shorter podcast than usual. I don't think it's going to be the longer.
It won't be.
In the end, it won't be. You're right. But the intention is that we'd like to do it because it's Friday night. We are dead tired from a very busy week and a very busy NHL draft day, of course, because we were watching it all unfold. But anyway, we'll give it the time that it deserves. Guys, I'll start by saying this, all right? And I want to make it clear what I'm going to say. As a member of the media who has seen the Canadiens miss the playoffs for the last 3 years, and that's what a rebuild is all about. And I, for one, have lobbied for a rebuild on several occasions, and I'm happy they chose the avenue of the rebuild for the last 3 years. But as a member of the media who now sees the Montreal Canadiens so close to a playoff spot, knocking on the door, 2 points out of the second wildcard spot, 1 point out of 3 points out of the first wildcard spot, they're knocking on the door with 20 games left. I would have loved to have seen the Montreal Canadiens go out and try to improve their team and be a better team today than they were yesterday. Why? Because Global TV Montreal could use it and Brian Wilde could use it because the Montreal Gazette and hockeyinsideout.com and Stu Cowan could use it.
Playoffs.
Yeah. RDS could use it. TVA Sports could use it.
The fans could use it.
English Sports Radio could use it. BPM Sports Radio could use it. All the sports outlets, all the fans, the city of Montreal, the establishments in and around the Bell Center.
Beer.
Guys, you get my drift, right? I mean, people are so much happier when the Montreal Canadiens make the playoffs. So in that respect, count me among those who are extremely disappointed. And I understand that the objective was a player that would come in and be part of this whole thing long term. But in absence of that, I would have even taken the whole rental thing to try and give this team a push. Now, as an objective hockey fan, I would say good for Kent Hughes and Jeff Gordon for having a plan, not deviating from the plan, not compromising the future for a player that can help them over the next couple of years. They know where they're going with this, and they know that the bigger deals are done in the offseason. And they're going to wait, and they probably will, and let's hope that they do. Having said all that, now, Brian, I leave it to you. Disappointed, yes or no?
Yeah, I'm disappointed for sure, because on one hand, I wasn't expecting there to be a fire sale of the unrestricted free agents, because the team won 5 games and then had an overtime loss. So they've gotten points in 6 straight games. They put themselves in the playoff mix. They told the head coach and the general manager that they were good enough to compete and be in the mix and play meaningful games. So they sent a message, and the message was, go get us somebody. We lost Kirby Dach, and Owen Beck had 8 minutes in Edmonton, and Nick Suzuki had 24 minutes in Edmonton, and that's unsustainable. And if we're going to do this, and let's say we even make the playoffs, well, we better have a 2C. And they didn't get a 2C. And I'm disappointed they didn't get a second-line center. I don't know what the price was for that second-line center, but I think they should have paid real high. Somebody with a little bit of term could have made the world a difference, and it wouldn't have hurt the franchise overall to lose even Calgary's pick at 17th overall.
Stu, unsustainable, Brian. I love that word, because Nick Suzuki playing 24 minutes last night in Edmonton, and Owen Beck playing 8:20 or 8:22 or whatever it was. And now those watching can tell us, yeah, but don't worry about it, because Owen Beck's not really the second line centerman. It's Jake Evans who plays 16 minutes, or it's Dvorak who plays whatever. It's not the point. The point is that the Canadiens don't have a second line, very unfortunately. And the most important position on that second line is the spot of a center. And going out and getting a player today would have meant that you could have sent Owen Beck down to the Laval Rocket. Pascal Vincent would have welcomed them with open arms. You get a player who can play more minutes. Makes you a better team today. I'd love to get your thoughts, Stu, because unsustainable, it's a great word, because Nick Suzuki's been carrying them since they came back from the Four Nations tournament. But to carry them for the final 20 games of the season, it's
and then a playoff series.
Yeah. Well, I'm not disappointed, because I wrote a column yesterday saying I didn't think they would do anything, and I didn't expect them to do anything. And unsustainable. You got to remember also the game against Edmonton, they're playing against Connor McDavid. So Marty St. Louis is going to match Nick Suzuki.
Check his minutes on the other games.
Yeah.
Stu.
I mean, his minutes are going to. It is unsustainable. But I think they will increase. I think they will increase his minutes as time goes on. And Owen Beck isn't the only problem with that. Like, that second line. There's issues on that second line. Patrick Laine's defensive commitment, Alex Newhook inconsistent. I don't know if giving up something big to bring in a center is going to necessarily fix that whole problem they have with that.
Okay, so what do you see next year then?
Well, that's what Ken Hughes said today. He said the trade deadline isn't the best time to be looking to make a deal necessarily.
No. I mean, in terms of Laine, he's still on the team. Newhook's still on the team.
Yep.
A 200-foot center would have that line playing in the offensive zone where both of those players are strong.
Yeah.
A lousy, or not lousy, Owen Beck's going to be a great hockey player. I
think he's going to be a really good player.
He's going to be a fantastic hockey player. He's just in over his head at this particular moment, and too much is being asked of him. But next year, they get a 200-foot center, someone who carries the puck out of the zone, makes it work in the other zone, and suddenly Patrick Laine looks like an unbelievable hockey player because he's good at offense.
And you don't have whatever you would have given up to get it this year.
What is it? What is that? What is
that? Well, that's what we don't know. I mean, the other thing Ken Hughes said.
We don't know, but let's say it's a first. Let's say it was Calgary's pick, 17th overall.
Are you going to give up a first-round pick for the hope that maybe you get in the playoffs this year? The hope that maybe you get in.
Well, he's got a little term. He's got a little term. I'm giving this guy 2 years of term.
From day one of this rebuild, Kent Hughes and Jeff Gordon have been adamant they don't want a team that gets in the playoffs 1 year and anything can happen. Flying by the seat of your pants, like we saw with Marc Bergevin, the way he did it.
Right.
Get in the playoffs.
But now we're changing. They also said they were going to get draft picks for prospects for players, and they didn't do that today.
But I don't think
the page has been turned on the book you just sold. That book isn't on the shelves anymore. A new book is on the shelf.
Yeah, let's give us to a chance to reply.
Patience is so important in a rebuild. And Ken Hughes spoke today about having patience at the beginning of this rebuild when they were losing like crazy, and having patience now when you get 5-game win, then you think, what are we going to do? But the long-range goal is to have a team that's making the playoffs is almost it's a given. You're going to make the playoffs, and we're going to compete in the playoffs. That's been the goal, and they're not near that point yet. if they get in the playoffs this year, and Ken, you said the goal going through the season was to be in the mix. They are in the mix. They're not ready to make any sacrifices towards the future to maybe get in the playoffs and maybe win one round. And even if they bring in a second round center, I don't see them going further than one round in the playoffs. With the young
Perfect.
defense they have, the goaltending, they're a few years away from being a team that's going to be. And I think Ken Hughes is right in not giving up assets, and I also think he's right. I don't think they were going to get a ton for Armia wants to stay here, so maybe they can re-sign him in the offseason.
Okay,
Dvorak is
yeah.
Let him go. David Savard, you let him go. But he also spoke today about the importance of having veteran guys for young guys to lean on. He spoke about Patrice Bergeron when the Bruins won the Stanley Cup in 2011, and Kent Hughes was his agent. Bergeron talked about how much the young guys in that team, Marchand, Chara, him, leaned on Mark Recchi, a guy who had been through it before, a veteran player. So going into the break, Kent Hughes was planning to trade those guys, all of them. And he spoke about that today. Now, they were 1-7-1. They were 6 points out, and he spoke with Nick Suzuki, and Nick Suzuki.
We have that audience too.
Don't split up the team. And Hughes said, well, you guys better start winning then. And he put it on Nick Suzuki's shoulders. He said, it's on your shoulders. And what did Nick Suzuki do the last 5-6 games? He went on a tear.
Let's play that audio. Talk with
Suzuki.
Suzuki.
Avec Nick. Puis j'ai juste répété qu'est-ce que je l'avais répété. J'ai dit, c'est sur tes épaules. Mais viens pas ici pour me dire de ne pas faire de quoi si vous n'avez pas fait qu'est-ce que vous avez à faire. Puis ils ont gagné 5 en ligne après cette discussion. Puis je pense que Nick a fait 13 points en 5 matchs. Alors on était content de voir, mais je suis content aussi de voir de Nick, pas juste l'équipe, mais Nick lui-même comme capitaine, comment il a réagi.
So Kent Hughes says Nick Suzuki went to see him and says, Kent, don't trade away our unrestricted free agents. And Kent looks at him and says, Nick, if you're going to tell me that, well, then you guys are going to have to do what you have to do, and you are going to have to do what you have to do, and you're going to have to put this team on your back, and you're going to have to carry it. Show me the results, and then we'll talk. Nick Suzuki goes out. The Canadiens win 5 games in a row. He picks up 13 points in the process. And then, of course, yesterday, they end up losing that game in overtime versus Edmonton, but they end up picking up a very, very key point. So he says he was happy with the way Suzuki responded. He talked about rewarding the team. Let's hear him out.
On sait qu'il va y avoir des changements dans le futur. C'est pas comme c'est cette équipe exacte qui va être avec nous pour les prochaines 10 ans. Mais je pense que quand il y a un groupe qui travaille si longtemps ensemble pour accomplir de quoi, puis je les avais dit, comme j'ai dit tantôt, je les avais promis au mois de septembre que, écoute, faites qu'est-ce que vous avez à faire. Puis, si vous le faites, ça va être ça. On va vous récompenser pour ça. Alors, écoute, on est fiers de ce qu'ils ont accompli. On est content que tout le monde vive ces expériences comme équipe, apprenne comment gagner dans des moments difficiles. Tandis que, rendu au mois de mars, les années passées, ils jouaient, je ne sais pas comment Martin a fait pour les motiver, mais c'était pas pour faire les séries. Alors, on va apprendre beaucoup, nous autres aussi, en disant les coachs et l'équipe de gestion, de quels joueurs vont bien réagir face à cette pression.
All right, so Kent Hughes says he told the team back in the month of September, you guys do what you have to do. You guys play good hockey. You guys get the results. You guys be in that mix, and I'm going to go out there and I'm going to reward you. So today, what was that reward? That reward was he didn't trade anybody away, but he didn't add anybody either. Now, he says he made a lot of calls, and he says he looked at a lot of big names. Let's hear him say that.
It was an exchange, I guess, of second-line centers. But if we're talking about trades for a second-line center that's going to be part of a team going forward into the future, I don't know that there was that type of trade. Today, listen, we came in with an objective of being in the mix at the start of the season. I think we've met that objective. We didn't come into this season hoping to compete for a Stanley Cup. We didn't think we were ready for that. And we'll continue to try to improve this team. But when you're trade deadline isn't necessarily the time of the year where you're trying to improve your team, or not that you're trying, because we tried. We made a lot of calls, not necessarily on players that were rumored to be available in trades, but just spitballing with teams on all kinds of different things to see if we could find a way to improve our team, and that could be, via trading something that we're long in, be it draft picks or positional for something where we felt we could use extra support in. But we're going to continue to push forward, Stu, and try to do this. And I think most fans know that the rebuild isn't something that's going to happen overnight. And listen, we're happy where we are, but we're not satisfied.
All right. Made a lot of calls.
Juste qu'on a regardé plein de choses. J'ai appelé des équipes pour demander sur des joueurs qui étaient sous contrat, pas nécessairement sur le marché, pour dire, y a-t-il une moyenne? Est-ce que vous serez possiblement ouvert à échanger tel joueur? Si oui, on est conscient qu'on aura à vous faire une offre d'équivalent valeur, mais on croit qu'on est capable de vous offrir dans ce sens des joueurs disponibles pour nous. Je ne mentionnerai jamais des noms parce que c'est quand même des très bons joueurs, des très bons prospects ou des très bons choix de repêchage. Mais dans la plupart des cas, c'est des choses qu'on pourrait regarder dans l'été, mais on n'est pas prêt à le faire présentement.
All right. Kent Hughes says, listen, I made a lot of calls. I even asked about players that, we weren't even hearing their names on the market, but I was asking if they were available. I was asking about prospects. I was asking about players. And, some of them are available, some of them are not. I'm not going to give you their names, but it's players that I could go back and maybe revisit in the summer. But today I wasn't willing to pay that price that maybe. So I'll revisit in the summer, he says. Stu, I'll say this. I love Kent Hughes. I don't know anyone who doesn't, to tell you the truth. I love Kent Hughes. There's a lot of love about him. I don't think the Doc trade worked out, and I think the Newhook trade, the jury's still out on that. But hey, nobody's perfect. And as Marc Bergevin once said, Tony, if you expect me to bat for 1,000, I'm not going to bat for 1,000. So I love Kent Hughes. I think he gives out awesome contracts. He makes everyone feel important, but ends up being awesome contracts for the Canadiens organization, for their cap. But the feeling I get, and the feeling I got listening to that press conference and watching it and listening to it again and watching it again right now, is that he knew, like you knew, like everyone knew, he needed to improve his team in many areas, but with the most important area being the center ice position and a second line centerman. He tried, he made phone calls, he tried. Ultimately, he wasn't willing to pay the price that they were asking. And so now he's telling us that he rewarded the team by not trading anyone away.
Or Tony, as he said, he's spitballing, or there's a center that isn't available now that might be available in the summer that's a better option for them moving forward, and he'll have a better idea of what he's willing to give up then.
But my point is there no centerman better than Owen Beck today? Like, he needed to make the team better, right? Like, I understand they're in a rebuild, and somebody said to me the other day, I'm disappointed in you. I said, why? Well, because you gave up on the rebuild. It's not because I want to trade one or two of 114 draft picks that I've given up on the rebuild. They have 8,000 draft picks, too. 8,000.
Yeah, but it's going to take it to get a second line NHL centerman at the trade deadline. 200-foot player is going to be a first-round pick and another and maybe another and after that. Are you willing to pay that price again for a team that they might not even get in this year with the young defense they have? With mentioned Caden Gooley out, like, their goal coming into the season was to be in the mix, and they are, despite losing Doc, despite losing Caden Gooley, despite not having Patrick Laine for so long. I think it's impressive what they've done in this year 3 of the rebuild, and I think for Kent Hughes, he said he met when the team went away to Mont Tremblant before the season started. He spoke with the players and said, "This is the first year 3 of the rebuild." He said, "This is the first time since I've been here as GM that we don't have a concrete plan for what we're doing this season." So going into the previous seasons, they knew they were trading Sean Monahan. They knew they were trading Tyler Toffoli. They knew what they were going to do. It didn't matter. They knew the team was going to lose a whole bunch of games and they were going to get rid of these guys. This season, he said they didn't know. They're going to let the players decide. So if the trade deadline was before the Four Nations face-off, Tony, Dvorak's traded. Savard's traded. Jake Evans might be traded because maybe if the team's slumping, maybe he doesn't want to take the hometown discount to stay here. They're getting rid of the free agents, and the rebuild is moving backwards a little bit, right? But now they won. He challenged Nick Suzuki to carry the team on his back. He did, and they rewarded him. And I saw a video the Canadiens posted on an X today. Dvorak and Dvorak and Caulfield are roommates, or at least they were roommates.
Yes, they are. Yeah.
Caulfield hugging Dvorak on the ice, so happy that he's still part of the team. I talked with Lane Hudson last week, hoping that David Savard would stay with the team, saying how much he's meant to him. And I think that goes a long way in the locker room. Maybe not equally, but close to what bringing another player would have done. I think this group is really tight-knit. They're really close, and they're really happy today, I'm sure. I'm sure the guys are having dinner tonight, and they're really happy David Savard's with them, and they're really happy that Armia is with them, and they're really happy that Dvorak's with them. And it might give them a little bump moving forward, too, in that, our GM kept his word. He said if we played well, he would keep guys, and he did. And I think that goes a long way in the locker room, and we'll see if it works.
Stu, you don't think that at that supper tonight in Alberta that some guys are saying we're a couple of points out of a wild card. Owen Beck's our second line center. Ottawa just got Dylan Cousins. And we needed help. Brian?
Well, also, sorry, Nick Suzuki's your best player, right? And
yeah.
I mentioned the minutes that he got. I don't think he's going to get 27 minutes in it. But being able to double shift Nick Suzuki a bit isn't necessarily a horrible thing either.
That's going to be a lot of hockey. That's 20.
Yeah, but Tony, you've always said play your best players the most, right?
Yeah. Listen, double shift your best players. I can go with that, but
there's 20 games left. And within the next, they might be out of it 5 games from now, or they might be right back in it. And even as with Caden Gooley, Ken Hughes said if he's ready to come back and we're out of the playoffs, we're not going to play him this season. We're going to wait till next season to bring him in.
I just can't help, because I agree with everything you said, Stu. Everything you said, I agree 100%. The fact that you're talking about all of these unrestricted free agents and how happy everybody is that they're staying and they're one united group. And I've been in the room too, not like you went away. But it's pretty obvious they're really unified. They're all very happy with each other. And that is all true. I don't take any exception with that at all. But there's just a little part of me that's looking at the standings on about April 16th that sees them missing the playoffs by 3 points. And I feel like a second line center that would have probably cost 2 second-round draft choices could have made the difference on 2 of the 20 nights that remained. And they could have just put themselves over that finish line just a little bit, which would have led to a series, and it would have been more games in the mix and more games that mattered. And it could have made a big difference to the whole city and the whole organization. And I don't, and obviously Jeff Molson too, who will enjoy the, $7 million each time they have a home game.
I don't think you're getting a second line center though for two second round picks. I think you're
really. What did Scott Laughton go for?
I think you're losing.
He's not a bad player. See, now we're obviously saying here, and I agree with you.
Scott Laughton, who was traded from Philadelphia to Toronto, would have become the Montreal Canadiens second line center, and he's not great, but he is much more NHL ready than Owen Beck, and he would have been an upgrade.
That's my point. Okay, and what did he cost?
We have it. And yellow.
He went to Toronto. It's on that graphic that we made before the show began.
Let's bring it up. Stu's going to bring it up for us here. All right, these are some of the trades that actually went down today. For those who are wondering, the Dallas Stars acquired Mikko Rantanen for a couple of first-round draft picks and Logan Stankoven from the Hurricanes. They then ended up signing Mikko Rantanen, by the way, the Stars did, to an 8-year contract extension for $12 million a season, $96 million total. The Panthers acquired Brad Marchand from the Bruins. The Maple Leafs acquired Brandon Carlo from the Bruins and Scott Laughton from the Philadelphia Flyers. The Jets acquired Brandon Tanev and Luke Schenn in separate deals. The Sabres and Senators made a deal where Josh Norris went from Ottawa to Buffalo, and Dylan Cousins went from Buffalo to Ottawa. I think the Senators won that deal, by the way. Capitals acquired Anthony Beauvillier from the Penguins. Avalanche acquired Charlie Coyle from the Bruins for Casey Middlestat. The Penguins acquired Craig Smith, Peter Mrazek from the Blackhawks. The Blackhawks ended up getting Montrealer Joe Veleno. Those are some of the deals that were done today in the National Hockey League. Steve,
the Leafs give up Nikita Grabenkin and a first-round pick for Laughton.
Okay.
And that pick is going to be around 25 overall. So there you go. There's a 17 pick. And Scott Laughton's not that great. So, like, today was clear. Like, you look at it and say,
oh, you're going to give up a first-round pick on a rebuilding team?
Let me
finish.
Can I finish? Can I finish? Okay. So, clearly it was a seller's market today. Like, Ryan Donato, he didn't go, right? I didn't miss it, right?
No, he didn't go.
He didn't go. Why? Because he was too rich. Chicago must have wanted 2 first-rounders for him.
And there's talk that Chicago wants to sign him to an extension.
Exactly. But there were a lot of guys that could have gone. There were a lot of centermen. Like, there are 16 teams that aren't going to make the playoffs. About 13 admitted it today. And there were like 3 centers that moved. So it was the seller's market. That's what all the GMs said. That the asking prices were astronomical this year. And I think that's what happened to Kent Hughes. He said the asking prices are astronomical. I'm not giving up, the 13th pick overall and the 17th pick overall, or the 18th and the 20th, that both teams, Calgary and Montreal, make the playoffs. And I think that's what happened.
And
that's what happened. It just got too rich.
They gave up a first-round pick. Laughton has 11 goals in 60 games, and he's minus
He still
17.
would have been the second-line center of the Montreal Canadiens, though.
But the other thing too, with playing all
and Kent just decided. I'm sure Kent was offered that. Right, because obviously, Philadelphia would have loved to have done that trade with, instead of the 26th overall, the 16th overall, and Kent would have said no to that offer, and that's obviously where Kent landed. Not giving you the 16th overall pick.
Let's hear from Stu on that note. But Stu, I want to say this: is that I'm not going to pretend to know how good Grebenkin is because I haven't watched him play games with the Marlies this year. He is a 6'2" winger who's a former 5th-round draft pick, 135th overall, played 7 games for Toronto last year, got 0 points, and this year has 21 points for the Marlies in 39 games. So by all accounts, if you end up giving up a guy like that and what could possibly end up being the 25th pick in the draft, and Laughton's no superstar, you're right, but he's a huge upgrade on Owen Beck right now.
The Leafs have to win this year. Like they got to win in the playoffs this year, right? So they're willing to give up the first-round pick. They're desperate, right? Canadiens are desperate. I don't see giving up a first-round pick for Laughton. Like, to me, if Hughes did have that, and they didn't. And I think they were right if that was. I think they were smart if they didn't. And the other thing with Owen Beck, like Owen Beck's a really good hockey player. He's a 200-foot hockey player. Marty's takes care of his rookies, right? He protects them a lot. And he was protecting them obviously last night in Edmonton. But moving forward, like next season, Nick Suzuki's your number 1 center. Jake Evans is your number 4 center. That's set. Number 2 and number 3 are up for grabs, right? Like, who's it going to be? You figure Owen Beck's going to be the number 3 center next year. But now they now they're having an opportunity to play him with some good players and see what he can do over this next little while. So it's almost a trial period for Owen Beck to give them a better idea going to next season. Is there a possibility he could be a number 2 center in the future? Is he a number 3 center? Like, where do we slot him? And I think they're going to have a better idea of that going into the summer. And if it comes up to trade options too, like, are you willing to trade Owen Beck as a deal to get somebody? Like, I think a lot of things that come into play here. And I just think I wouldn't have given up a first-round draft pick to get a center who's going to make your second line a little bit better. I'd rather wait about the season and see if you can find a guy who will be available in the offseason who's going to make your second line a lot better.
What about the Middlestat Coyle avenue?
Yeah,
let's say they won't. No, I'm just saying. Let's say, Middlestat's not. I'm not a Middlestat fan. Don't get me wrong. I really think he's soft. He's a soft player, but he still was. A high draft pick, and Colorado gave up a lot to get him, and then they gave up on him. And Coyle's a veteran, so they basically traded for some more grit, did Colorado, for the playoffs, which they think they're going to need against maybe a Dallas first-round matchup. So in that instance, let's say it's Hughes that is getting a call from Colorado about Middlestat, and he needs to trade a Coyle type. Does that work for anybody?
I would have loved to have known, and I don't know this, and maybe one day we'll find out. Maybe one day we never will. He didn't move today, but I would have loved to have known what the asking price would have been for a Jared McCann, who has played center in the past and is not playing center this year with the Seattle Kraken because they have Matty Berniers, they have Shane Wright, and they have Chandler Stevenson signed to a deal at 7.5. They had Yanni Gourde, and after Gourde and Bjorkstrand got traded to Tampa Bay, he's now slotted in at left wing on the second line. That player is 28 years old. He's over 6 foot. He's played center in the past. He's got 40-something points, I think. I think he had 60-something points the year before. I think he had 70-something points the year before that. And that year he had 70-something points. I think he had 40 goals. He's got 2 years left on his contract at $5 million. We'll never know, but I'm really curious as to what the asking price was. And you know what?
Must have been high.
Stu, you said they did good to not trade their first-round pick, and I think most people would agree with that, okay? You do good not to trade a first-round pick. But if that first-round pick...
Well, not for Lawton. Like, you might throw that first-round pick in, as I mentioned, if there's a better center available in the summer, that you put a first-round pick and maybe even a couple of your prospects, and you said getting a guy who's going to help this team for many years, as opposed to a guy who might help you maybe get into the playoffs this year and maybe win a round.
And the difference between 15 and 25 is very, very significant in your hit rate.
Mm-hmm.
Well, obviously, Pierre Maguire told me last night that this year, 2025 and 2026, in his opinion, are not very good draft years. He says in the top 10, there's good players that are going to go, but after that, it drops off significantly. Now, you know what? A lot of people are going to say, don't trade away your second-round draft pick because Lane Hudson was a second-round draft pick. I get that. But you know what? They also drafted Philip Machar in the first round, too, and I think it's pretty safe to say by now that was not a great pick where they drafted him, right? So it's hit and miss. I know it's not an exact science, and you know, the more bullets you have, the more chance you have of hitting a target. Like I kind of get that too, but look, there's a lot of passion in tonight's show, right? Because I think it's great. I really think it's great because we agree with what everyone is saying, but even though they're not expected to make the playoffs, Stu, and I'm going to say this, and I hope I'm wrong. Man, do I hope I'm wrong. If I were a betting man tonight on Betway, I would bet they're not going to make the playoffs.
I don't think they're going to either. And I don't think adding Lawton would have got them into the playoffs either. I don't think that's – I mean, it's going to be borderline, right? It's going to go right down to the end.
I hear you.
You mentioned earlier, if they missed the playoffs by 3 points, we're going to be sitting here what he could have done.
You know,
Hughes wants to get in the playoffs, right? Jeff Molson would like to get in the playoffs. You know, I mean, you say it's a lot of money in Jeff Molson's pocket if they get in the playoffs. But again, to just get in that, like, if they miss the playoffs by 3 points this season, Kent Hughes will be disappointed. He won't be devastated. That was the goal coming in to be in the mix. And all the experience these young guys are going to get going through this period, including Owen Beck, going through these games that really matter, that really count, that they'll carry them forward with them. To I'm sure to Kent Hughes, that is more valuable to him than sneaking into the last playoff spot and losing in the first round. So,
you know, it really does come down to the hit rate too, though, because like if I'm in Toronto's shoes and say, okay, we're going to draft around 25, go get Lawton because the hit rate on that is 50-50 at 25 overall. If Machar misses, 50% of the time you miss at that number. Okay. And the player becomes a star. And star is defined by 3/4 of a point per game average, only 5% of the time. But the hit rate is 75% at 15, and a star at 15% of the time. It's a massive difference in the draft between drafting 15 and 25. So if I'm Kent Hughes, and I know those numbers from the study that has been done by me and also by Byron that I've seen were similar numbers to mine, I don't make the trade at 15. At 15, the possibility that guy becomes a star is too high. But if I'm Toronto, I make that trade at 25 because it's Mike McCarron, it's Philip Machar, it's a bunch of guys that don't land.
Ryan Poehling.
Poehling.
The other thing we haven't even mentioned, the Canadiens also have Michael Hage, right? Who
21 overall. That's a damn
could
great
potentially
pick.
be their number 2 center, not next season. But, you know, progressing well, University of Michigan this year.
I'm happy they didn't trade him, by the way. And last night on the Sick podcast, Pierre Maguire, I asked Pierre Maguire last night if he's a fan of Dylan Cousins for the Canadiens. And he said, yeah, I would be very interested in him. And I said, would you be willing to give up Michael Hage for Dylan Cousins? And he said, I would have no problem doing that.
Wow.
And I was very surprised to hear that. And but you know what? I respect the opinion because Dylan Cousins had 68 points a couple of years ago. So I said to Pierre Maguire, I said, okay, explain that to me. And he said, look, if they were going out to try and get a 27-year-old player, I would say you don't give up Michael Hage for that. But at 24, he says he's got a lot of term left on his contract. He's got a pretty decent contract, making $7.1 million after, a year. He'll make it for the next 5 years after this year. But then I said to him, but Pierre, what do you say to somebody that says to you, yeah, but Dylan Cousins has been on the decline for the last 2 years? And Pierre would say, I would tell him, look at who he plays with, and his team is not very good. Like, what do you want the guy to do? And he plays with Jordan Greenway, and he plays with Alex Tuck, who are both third-line players, let's be honest. And he plays for a team and an organization that is completely dysfunctional. They have been for the last 15 years. They have no chemistry whatsoever, and they've traded away so many players that have gone on to have great careers elsewhere. So I totally understood his point. But having said that, and I'll get back to it, I'm so happy they didn't trade Michael Hage, because that kid's story, for me, that story, it means something. That his mom is a Canadiens fan, that his late dad was a Canadiens fan.
His grandmother lives in Nuns Island.
That his grandparents were Montreal Canadiens fans, that he grew up being a Montreal Canadiens fan, that his dad would have been so happy that he was drafted by the Montreal Canadiens, the emotion that he had when hearing his pick, how much he wanted to be a Montreal Canadian, coupled with the fact that the last couple of years Chicago was still 75 points. This year, I think he's got 33 and 31 with the University of Michigan. Right. I'm happy they didn't trade that player. I think that player has the potential. I don't know, but I think he's got the potential. I'm to be a second line centerman for the Canadiens for a decade if he wants to.
He wore number 9 as a kid for Maurice Richard because his father loved Maurice Richard. And at development camp, he stood out. Tony, skill wise, he's so smooth. He carries the puck. He's skinny. The only thing he's missing, he needs to fill out. And the University of Michigan is the perfect place for him to be. So another year at the University of Michigan, and then maybe a year with Laval. And after that, he has the potential definitely to become their future second-round centerman or second-line centerman.
Two things not said in the opinion of whether Cousins for Hage would have been good or bad from me here. Number one, point per game players as freshmen in college. I don't know what the exact percentage is, but it's got to be 75, 80%. They turn into awesome NHL players. I mean, it's almost like a given. You do point per game in your first year in college in America, you're going to be a star in the NHL. Very rare that guy doesn't succeed. So 33 and 31 is an absolute massive number. And also the only other point in terms of whether that would have been a great deal or not for me is that player cost $1 million for 3 years, and that's very important.
And it's not a great kid, as you said, Brian. He has to gain weight, but in university, you're playing against some big guys, right? You're playing.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's succeeding against guys. Yeah. And then, so he's good for the cap, obviously, too. If he can be a roster player, like look at Lane Hudson, what he does for the cap.
But you're right. At the University of Michigan, he's going to spend a lot of time in the gym, and I've been doing that lately too because they have very good Wi-Fi. All right,
this is a segue, isn't it?
The Sick Podcast is brought to you in part by Energy Transportation Group, a leading full-service logistics provider serving all North America. Driven to be different, they are a top fleet employer in Canada. Just ask Forbes magazine, and they'll tell you that. Brian, get ready for the spring break power weeks at Playground. The cards are hot. Like me, the vibes are chill at Playground from February 27th to March 9th with 12 exciting events and a cool $400,000 in guarantees. So get ready to stack your chips and soak up the action. This break is no bluff. Visit playground.ca for details. Here's Kent Hughes on Oliver Kapanen.
Blessure à Laval. On a aussi Oliver Kapanen, que quand son saison va terminer, est disponible de revenir jouer en Amérique du Nord. Puis normalement, on l'attendra à Laval. Alors, je pense que c'était plus... si tout le monde est en santé, on va avoir beaucoup de joueurs. Puis, il y a aussi l'élément, quand on parle des Canadiens de Montréal, il y a l'élément du développement des jeunes joueurs, puis de leur permettre aussi de vivre ces expériences, puis pas emmener tous des vétérans qui pourraient donner Laval meilleure chance, mais qui nuirait au développement des jeunes.
So Kent Hughes says, look, we want to help Laval, and I can tell you that once Oliver Kapanen season is over in Europe, that there's an intention of bringing him with the Laval Rocket. Brian brought up his name before. I could be wrong, but I believe the Montreal Canadiens have come to the realization that Alex Newhook and especially Kirby Dach are wingers. I could be wrong, but I believe they've come to that realization. So having said that, like Brian, I believe that Oliver Kapanen will have a center ice role with this team next year. Whether Kapanen's going to be the third line centerman, and Evans is going to be the fourth, or Evans is going to be the third, and Kapanen's the fourth. It doesn't really matter, but I believe that Oliver Kapanen will start the season next year as a centerman on the Montreal Canadiens, and that Newhook and Doc, if they are still with the Canadiens, they still have a contract, but if they can be dealt. But if they are with the Canadiens, they will be playing wing. Agreed or disagree?
Brian, well, you also got Owen Beck though, too, right?
Pardon me?
Where do you play Owen Beck?
It's a very very good question. Owen Beck, I
think Kapanen is more likely to play the wing than Beck because he's
could be. That could be.
I have an answer.
Yeah.
I think it'll go this way, you guys. I think obviously Suzuki's going to be the one. I think they'll acquire the two.
Yeah, I agree.
Either via trade or unrestricted free agent. The three will be the better of Beck or Kapanen, and the four will be Evans.
You make a good point, though, Tony. Like, year 3 of a rebuild, right? They're in the mix to be in the playoffs. And you talked about Buffalo, 14 years in a row they're going to miss the playoffs. So year 3 of a rebuild in the mix is quite impressive. Add to that, the Laval Rocket are the second best team in the AHL. So all these guys in Laval, Jackeye and Reinbacher and Beck, if the Canadiens don't make the playoffs, they did a paper move today that Beck can go down and play in Laval. So all these guys in Laval are going to gain the experience of a playoff run this year. They're going to be in the playoffs, right? Yeah. And all the young guys in Montreal are going to gain the experience of playing real meaningful games down the stretch, and hopefully for them get into the playoffs, and even if they get one round. So you have all these young guys gaining such valuable experience moving forward. And again, it's only year 3 of the rebuild. That's why I don't think today was the time to make any kind of a panic type move.
Not panic.
Well, a move to just a move for right now. A move for let's see if we can get into the playoffs, and then anything can happen.
So here's something. When you just talked about Beck and we talked about Kapanen.
And so Lawton was a bit of a panic move by the Leafs, right?
Yes,
they're desperate to find something that works in the playoffs this year.
I don't think Yoel Armia will be signed in the summer, because if he is, then where are you putting Beck and Kapanen? So we talked about who's going to play center, who's going to play wing. I think if Armia is not brought back, one of those players can end up playing on that line with Jake Evans and Emil Heineman. And I think they're both going to end up playing on that line. I think they're going to end up trying both of them at center. They're going to end up trying both of them at the wing, seeing who plays better at center, who plays better on the wing. And Kapanen will probably start on the wing, and Owen Beck will probably start at whatever. But
and one thing we always says, you can never have too many guys who can play center. And Ivan Demidov can play center too.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a winger though.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, as Marty says, when you have guys who can play center, like guys get kicked out of face-off circles, you have guys taking face-offs on their strong sides all the time, and they also centermen see the game a little different. Right? It's a lot easier to go play wing after you played center than vice versa.
Okay, in ending, a shout out to MFD Painting. If you can, Mitch Prue, no job too big, no job too small. It's a family business. They can paint your home, your apartment, interior or exterior. They're absolutely fantastic. They're very efficient. They work very, very fast, and they'll be in and out, and you'll be happy that they took care of your home. Check out their page on Facebook of MFD Painting, or call Mitch at 514-893-9856. Guys, big winners. Let's move on from the Canadiens. Well, they got a big game in Calgary tomorrow night. Let's see how it goes. It's a big 4-game Western road trip. They picked up a point in Edmonton last night, in Calgary tomorrow night, in Vancouver on Tuesday night, in Seattle on Wednesday night. Winners and losers of today's trade deadline. Guys, I love the Dallas Stars team. I love the Dallas Stars. And you know what? A lot of people have been in love with Dallas over the years, and I wasn't really crazy about them. I love Dallas right now, and I wouldn't be surprised if they play Colorado and they lose, because Colorado's got great players, and I like their team too. I really like Dallas. Are they the big winner, guys?
Well, they had a plus 53. They had a plus 53 goal differential before today. They're pretty damn team. They got good defensemen. They're a solid hockey team. The West is going to be wild. Like, a really good team's going to get knocked out in the first round in the West.
Brian Agnello and I are in a hockey pool. There's 12 teams in this hockey pool. I think we each have to choose 16 players. We have, and obviously if you have a player, the other teams can't have them, Jason Robertson,
nice,
Rupe Hintz, Michael Granlund, and Mason Marchment. So from the Dallas Stars. So every time Dallas has games where they score a lot of goals, we're all excited because we're on NHL.com. We're trying to see how many points they pick up. But Brian, it's unbelievable that Rantanen goes to Dallas.
Yeah.
He ends up rejecting the over $12 million a year offer that Carolina made him. He had rejected the $12 million deal that he from Colorado to end up signing it in Dallas. It's pretty crazy. Logan Stankoven goes the other way. Brad Marchand, guys, has become a Florida Panther. Brad Marchand, Sam Bennett, and Matthew Tkachuk on the same team.
The Hanson brothers. The Hanson brothers.
Brian, if
the Hanson brothers.
Florida's strong too.
Get the glasses and the tin foil ready.
Florida's strong again, Brian.
Florida's strong again, and that 2-3 matchup in the Atlantic is going to be crazy, right? It could be Florida-Tampa or Florida-Toronto or Tampa-Florida. I mean, but one of those teams is getting eliminated again.
I like Tampa.
You got to think it's Toronto, right?
I like
because it's Toronto.
Yeah, I like Tampa too, guys. At Braden Point,
But,
Nikita Kucherov, Jake Gensel, Cirelli, Nick Paul, Yanni Gourde, Oliver Bjorkstrand, Ryan McDonough, Victor Hedman, Vasilevsky.
But Toronto did okay too. They got Brandon Carlo to really shore up the D. They got Loughton to be better down the middle. They did okay too, Toronto. So all three of those teams, they went in heavy and hard, and only two of the three are going to survive. But you got to feel bad for Carolina. If you're a Hurricane fan, man, was that a mess?
The last 2 years,
mess.
hey, they
what a mess.
They let Jake Gensel go for nothing.
Yeah.
Now they end up trading away Rantanen after they traded Martin Necas, who had a 2-year deal. 2-year deal at 6.5. Fire the GM right now. Fire him.
That was a mess. What a mess.
A
what
disaster.
a mess.
Stu, final word goes
to
you.
Carolina's a beautiful place. I think it'd be a nice place to live, but I mean, Texas is no state tax, right? So that's another reason somebody would want to go there. But I mean, you mentioned Tampa and that. I mean, kudos to Julien Brisebois. To me, like, what a smart GM this guy is. Remember the heat he took for letting Stamkos go? Doesn't look so bad right now, does it?
No, that was a brilliant move. You know what?
He doesn't let his heart rule his head.
Friends is friends, business is business. The logical thing is to let the 30-something-year-old go to bring in a guy in the prime of his career.
I love Brendan Gallagher. I love Brendan Gallagher, and he's earned every dollar with the Canadiens. But when Marc Bergevin gave him that contract at that length, it was heart more than head thinking on it, right? And Julien Brisebois, imagine what the Canadiens how different the Canadiens might have been if they had kept Julien Brisebois here. He was here.
He understands. Julien Brisebois.
Imagine if they had kept him here, and he's just so smart. I saw him when Tampa was in town recently, and I had a chat with him. And he's just such a smart guy to talk for. He's from Greenfield Park. I'm from Brossard. We grew up in the similar areas. He's younger than me.
Yeah.
But he's so, and it's interesting too. He told me he went to Sport Etudes high school, and I figured, hockey and no, baseball. He was a baseball player. He played shortstop. Oh. He was in Sport Etudes with Eric Gagne. But he's got a lot of degree. Like, he's just such a smart guy. And he just but Kent Hughes uses his head, not his heart either, right? It's similar type of guy. So that's why
two things that Julien Brisebois understands is, one, when he has an open window, and even though Tampa's guys are aging out a little bit, the window's still open. They're still playing hockey, right?
Yeah.
So, like, even though some of those guys, they're older now, Hedman's older, they're all older, some of them are, but they're still the same players. The window is still wide open, and he understands that. And the other thing that he really understands is he always drafts 25th, 24th, and 27th. And he said it after he made the trade. He said, I'm not really interested in a bunch of 27th pick, and I don't know if they're going to be any good. He understands that usually they're not any good at 27.
I want good players. I want to have good players
instead of Midland picks.
Yeah,
he's not trading away
the fourth overall
choice here. He's trading away the 27th, and that's a massive difference.
I think today Kent Hughes used his head instead of his heart. I mean, he wants to win. He wants to win a Stanley Cup. He must have been tempted to do something. But I think that's where him and Gorton work well together, because I think Gorton. I don't know either of them really well, but I think Gorton's maybe the more calm of them, and he's been through this before, and he'd be like, Ken, whoa, calm down there. We're not ready yet. Next year, maybe. And I think that's a reason why this rebuild has gone so as well as it has. Again, it's only year 3.
Brian?
I think it's important that we know, while we're close to concluding this, that Tony and I, Stu, and everyone out there that are listening, are not making the point that Kent had a bad day or did a wrong thing. I think he's a genius. I think he's doing an outstanding job, and I don't think he's making any mistakes. And I think he handled everything brilliantly in terms of his UFAs and keeping the lineup strong. I think we're only trying to make the point that, and again, we can't understand fully what happened because we don't know what the offers were and how big of a seller's market it was. But it's just that one little thing that nudges at me and nags me just a little bit. It's just a small upgrade at that second line position. Could have made a big difference. Maybe it wouldn't. Could have made a big difference, and it wouldn't have been that.
You're right. We don't have the information from the inside.
Yeah, but I understand. I respect your opinion as always.
Thing. Yeah.
One of the great things is having different opinions, but I think, and there's no guarantee that this team is going to be in a playoff spot next year.
No,
look at New Jersey the year they were finished third overall.
Hold on a second. That's why Brian and I.
There's no guarantee that next year the Canadiens are going to be in the playoff.
But that's why Brian and I would have
wanted to go in hindsight and say, why didn't he do it last year to try?
Yeah, but flip the coin. Flip the coin on
that's why Brian and I would have wanted him to go for it a little bit this year because there's no guarantees that they'll make it next year. You don't know how Demidov is going to be in his rookie season. You don't know if Nick Suzuki is going to produce at the same point. You don't know
injuries hits.
You don't know who's going to get injured and all that stuff. So anyway.
But here's banking on his plan that they've had since day one, and they believe it's going to work.
I think we all believe it. The three of us believe it. We believe it. We love the man. We think they're fantastic.
Yes.
There's just this little nagging feeling I get.
I understand
that Beck is really raw out there.
And a lot of fans feel the same way on my
we have not lost confidence in the duo of Gordon and Hughes. Overall, we think they've done a very, very good job. And it's just that we have three people on the podcast tonight that even though the goal was not to make the playoffs going into the season, it was to be in the mix, which they are. They're knocking on the door with a chance to make the playoffs. Very unfortunately, on this night, on March 7, 2025, we are three individuals who have covered this game and this team for a very long time that we believe that they will not make the playoffs. And Stu, like you said, if they don't make it, it's not the end of the world.
Hold it. I didn't say that I didn't think they'd make the playoffs. I think they're going to make the playoffs.
You think they're still going to get in?
So what the hell we've been talking about for the last hour?
Well, no,
what are you
I'm just
upset
saying
about? You've been talking to me about Scott Lott going to get this guy. Now you're telling me they're going to make the playoffs.
No, I'm just saying they would have had a better chance to make the playoffs.
I just think they've been
would have got a second line center.
Too streaky,
hold it,
and that's
Tony,
a very young team.
No, stop. Listen. You know why? Because,
I'm so tired.
No. Let me explain. Where they are now, let's just call it flat, right? Okay, so they're 2 points back. Who cares? Let's just call it flat. 2 points is nothing over 20 games, right? So why am I saying that? Well, they're the hottest team out of all of them.
Okay.
Right? And lost in their last 6. They've run 5 together. None of all of the teams, and it's 8 are still involved. Not one of them bought today. 3 sold and 5 stood pat. Yeah. There wasn't a buyer on all of them. Columbus did not buy. Boston sold.
Ottawa got better.
The Islanders sold Nelson. I'm not sure Ottawa got better. Norris
you don't think Ottawa got better?
I'm not sure of that. Norris is a nice player. I like Norris. He's a good player. I think that's a 50-50 right now. And so do those 2 general managers, or they wouldn't have made the trade. The Rangers did nothing. Well, you know who's involved. Nobody did anything.
Philadelphia threw in the towel. Pittsburgh did nothing.
Right.
I get you.
Okay, so Philly threw in the towel. Boston threw in the towel. Columbus didn't buy. Nobody bought. So they're all even, and the hottest is Montreal. So why not Montreal?
I'll tell you why, Brian. And now I'll finish today.
Okay, go
because playing Nick Suzuki that much and not playing your second line centerman is unsustainable.
Oh my God,
gentlemen! Have a great weekend. Thanks for doing this. Thank you, gentlemen.
You guys, always fun.
Thank you so much. There you have it, Brian Wilde for Global TV Montreal and Stu Count for the Montreal Gazette and HockeyInsideOut.com. For Shane Gamo and Master Control, thank you so much for watching today. As always, so much appreciate the support. Leave us a 5-star review on Apple. It's our way of feeling the love. It's the Sick Podcast. We'll be back again on Monday. Ciao for now.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. The Sick Podcast. is brought to you by Energy Transportation Group, driven to be different. La Vida TB, embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination.